Welcome back again, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to indulge in a keynote address. Lakehouse for Financial Services, the future is open. We will be hearing thoughts and perspectives from Junta Nakai, Regional Vice President, Global Industry Leader of Financial Services and Sustainability, Databricks. In fact, in his capacity, he's responsible for driving the worldwide adoption of the unified data analytics platform across capital markets, banking, payments, insurers, and data providers. So on that note, it's time to deep dive into our next keynote address. Here we go.
Hello, my name is Junta Nakai. I head up the financial service business at Databricks. Thanks for joining me today, where I want to spend some time talking about two concepts that I think are going to become increasingly important in the paradigm of both financial services and data and AI over the next decade, which are the concepts of openness and simplicity. For those of you that are new to Databricks, we are a cloud-native data and AI platform that makes data analytics, BI, SQL analytics, machine learning, AI, both open and simple. So again, I want to emphasize this open and simple part. And I think the best way to start thinking about that and contextualizing that in the concept of, in the construct of financial services is something that's happening in Europe and now spreading all around the world, which is open banking. So for those of you who are in London or maybe Australia or Canada are pretty familiar with this now, but for those of you who are not, open banking at its core is simply about the opening up of customer transaction data from a closed model to an open model that you see on the right. So now data in this construct is portable across institutions, across fintechs, to third-party providers, et cetera. And it represents a fundamental departure of how financial services institutions thought about customers and data at the same time. And I think that one of the best things that I could think of as a parallel to what's going to happen over the next, let's say, decade, is to look at what happened in software over the last decade. So in other words, I believe that open banking will do to banking what open source did to software over the last decade. And when I double click on that and the lessons learned from open source, I think there's basically three things looking at the software sector, which is the rapid acceleration of innovation that happened in software over the last decade, the launch of completely new business models that happened in software over the last decade, Databricks included. And then third one, which is massive value creation for those who adapted and those who disrupted. So going back to the previous slide where I showed that massive outperformance of the software sector vis-a-vis the banking sector in the United States. And what I think that banks and insurance companies and asset managers alike need to do over the next decade is to make this big transition away from product centricity towards customer centricity. And in order to do that, data and AI must play a very critical role in enabling that. But I also think there are, three T's that we need to think about, which is talent, tools, and time to market. And I'll start with the talent. Many of our customers tell us that it's quite difficult to recruit the best and brightest engineering talent to financial service organizations. And that's not surprising because I read this study the other day that said millennials would rather go to the dentist than to go to their bank. So one of the things to think about when you think about talent is the openness of that talent or the availability of that talent. So the open source projects that underpin Databricks, Spark, Delta Lake, MLflow, et cetera, today are downloaded over 8 million times a month around the world. So in other words, there is 100 million people at this current run rate that are being trained on the underlying technologies that enable Databricks. And with that comes a rich ecosystem of innovation and a rich pool of talent. And I think those are critically important. One of our financial service customers told me the other day, once they included Spark and Databricks and all the other kind of buzzwords into their job descriptions, the number of applications they got increased by 30%. That's hopefully not an atypical outcome, but this is, I think, a real thing to think about when you think about the openness for talent. The second part I want to touch upon is tools, right? So having that talent have an outlet for their creativity, their innovation, their insights, et cetera. And we here at Databricks believe that Lakehouse is the platform that enables that. So Lakehouse is simply a data architecture that enables an institution to take the best bits of a data lake and the best bits of a data warehouse and put it together. So think about the concurrency, the transactionality, the performance of a data warehouse. Think about the cost, the flexibility, the use cases that can be driven off of a data lake, and put those two things together in what we call a lakehouse. So Databricks is a lakehouse platform that's open and simple and collaborative. So that enables you to take all the data that you have, structured, semi-structured, streaming, batch, land it into one managed and governed data lake, or what we call Delta Lake, and to drive all the different data engineering, SQL, BI, and machine learning, real-time application use cases from that one single place. So in the paradigm of open banking, this simply means being able to take all the transactional data, the third-party data to enrich that, maybe alternative data sources like social media, all these different types of data that come in multiple forms, and land that into one place. So you could do your data science, your machine learning, your BI from that single source of truth or the single source of data. And I think this is critically important in the paradigm of open banking because it requires significant enrichment of data to get a much more comprehensive and complete view of what a customer is trying to do or what a customer is doing. Now, when you have both the talent and tools consolidated into one place, I think it opens the door for innovation. And this is a data maturity curve that I was inspired by one of our insurance customers out in Europe that I think they did a fantastic job articulating the value proposition of Databricks, which is most financial institutions in the world today can do the buckets of blue, right? They can tell you what happened in the past. So their cloud data warehouse might enable them to, ad hoc query some data and put together some reports to explain what happened in the past. But as I explained in the paradigm of open banking that move towards customer centricity, the use of alternative data, third-party data, advanced analytics, machine learning, what financial service institutions have to do is get to those red buckets. They need to do data exploration to explain why did it happen, predictive modeling to say what will happen, and more advanced things like how can we make that happen, right? And when you have all the tools, all the talent, all the data and consolidated into one place, we truly enable that lowers the cost of curiosity, and it significantly accelerates the cycle of innovation. And as you can imagine, as a lakehouse platform and a data analytics platform, Databricks enables our customers to do each and every one of those steps. From the ETL to the BI, to the machine learning, to the advanced analytics, all from that one single source of truth and one single lens to look at from a platform perspective. And when you have those things come together, it enables you to do the last T, which is to reduce the time to market, right? So I think if you think about open banking or that ecosystem, open banking, it forces FSIs to deliver products and services quicker, right? So in other words, like what use is real-time payments information if you don't have the ability to analyze it in real time, right? Or in near real time, or to innovate new products, create new services, right? To respond to customer needs. And what we found here at Databricks is customers, we have over 700 customers in financial services. The ones that leverage our platform, that unify everything into one place, can significantly accelerate the time it takes to bring models to market. And we simply, we deeply understand that financial services is heavily regulated. It's unlike any other industry, right? So you think about model validation, model audit, model strategy, all the different parts of it that come together to deploy something new. This Lakehouse platform, this Databricks unified data analytics platform, enables you to significantly lower the time or reduce the time it takes to deploy models. Because with things like Delta Lake, you have bitemporality. You can see as of data. With tools like MLflow, you can see the as of code with the ML repository for both machine learning and non-machine learning models. And our customers tell us by leveraging all these different bits and parts of Databricks, they can now significantly accelerate the time it takes to bring a new product or new market, new service to market. And I think those are the kind of the 3 T's to think about. Lakehouse, you're going to hear us talk a lot about Lakehouse, but Lakehouse is not a theoretical data architecture. It is leveraged by hundreds or thousands of institutions around the world across multiple industries. And we spend a lot of time here at Databricks trying to understand what are the end use cases that people are doing on a platform with this Lakehouse paradigm. And as far as I know, there are over 500 industry use cases that are driven off of that Lakehouse. And in financial services, if I distill it down to 4 main things, it really comes down to personalization, fraud detection, risk management, and sustainable finance, or ESG. And I'll talk a little bit about ESG in a bit. And one of the things that we've done here over the last year is making it easier for customers to learn from the best of breed companies or the leading companies, right? So the thought process is, if Databricks is a data and AI platform, therefore financial service customers that use Databricks do data and AI. So what are those use cases? What are the data sets? What's the reference architecture? How do they get started? And not surprisingly, we found that the companies that are successful using data and AI in financial services tend to find the lowest complexity, highest value use cases first. So we created something here called the use case guide that's publicly available. We can share with you. It's about a 50-page document that goes through the top 15 use cases that we're seeing in financial services and how to get started and learn from the best of how to deploy these advanced things. Underpinning the use case guide is a body of work called Solution Accelerators. Think of Solution Accelerators simply as a bridge between the idea of a use case and the technical implementation of that use case. So when we find repeatable patterns or use cases that are very popular that our customers are doing, we'll go out and build technical content and package that together. We'll put together the calculators on value, how-to guides, hands-on training, thought leadership articles, etc., so that our customers can do two things. One is to see all the benefits and features and functionalities of Databricks within the context of a real use case, but also to get started on that use case as quickly as possible. And here in financial services, we've built up a library of about 15 solution accelerators, from risk management to fraud detection, sustainability, stock market investing, customer 360, all sorts of stuff, so that you could get started on your use cases with technical content, and also learn from the best, from other industries that perhaps might be doing churn prediction better than what financial services is doing today. So all this is publicly available on our website. I think we'll be sharing links to this so that you could have access to it as well. And I'll give you a practical example of this, which is our work on ESG. So we believe sustainability at its core is simply a data and AI challenge. So one of the solution accelerators that we built is all around ESG scoring and ESG investing. And all this code, again, is publicly available, where we walk through, well, how do you use NLP to programmatically machine learn key ESG initiatives from self-disclosure, right? How do you use graph analytics and machine learning on big data sets such as GDELT, which is publicly available, let's say, news from all over the world? I think it's 60,000 news sources updated every 15 minutes to quantify what companies are doing or how they're perceived to be doing around ESG or sustainability by the market. And by doing those two things, we can now visualize, and I use Coca-Cola as an example, where our solution accelerator simply enables you to put in the name of a company in the S&P 500. And in the click of a button, our solution can now read every single self-disclosure that Coca-Cola has made around sustainability, read every single news item where Coca-Cola is mentioned around the ESG, and start doing basic things like scoring them on the E and the S and the G that you see on the top right. And here in this particular example, we walk through a customer everywhere from the ETL, the machine learning, the visualization, each step of that data maturity curve that I showed before, and have tracked away all the code. So even a non-technical user can benefit from the insights that are driven by Databricks, or that can be driven by Databricks. And again, the body of work that underpins this, the solution accelerator code, the data sets, et cetera, are all publicly available on our website for you to download. And again, we have about 15 of those around in financial services, and I believe we have 35 across all sectors, including healthcare, retail, media, cybersecurity, and migrations. And just to wrap up, as I mentioned, I believe that being open and simple and being data-driven and AI-driven are going to become increasingly important for financial service customers around the world. But I truly believe that companies who are already starting to do this are already starting to win. Right. So it's not just the theoretical, I think this is going to happen in 10 years. If you look at the data, I believe that companies that are driven by data and AI and have successfully operationalized that in the respective sectors are winning today. And one of the things that I've done here at Databricks is create something called the Databricks 30 Index. It's a stock index. And what I did was I said, well, if companies that focus on data and AI win, then our customers should win, because we are a data and AI company. So what I did is I made an equal weighted index of top 5 marquee customers across our main industry verticals. And I looked at their share price performance over the S&P 500. And as you can see, the Databricks 30 vastly outperforms its peers on a 1 and 3 year time horizon. And during the era of COVID, that outperformance actually became much more marked. And that makes sense because if you think about cloud, collaboration, data analytics, all the things that companies needed to be both agile and resilient during COVID-19. I mean, Databricks is cloud. Databricks is collaboration. Databricks is data analytics. So it kind of makes sense to me why these companies will outperform. The other level of analysis that I've done is looking specifically at the financial service sector. So I looked at our top 20 publicly listed US financial service customers, and I plotted their share price over the XLF, which is the US banking index. And we see a similar level of outperformance. And this is, I made this about 2 months ago. So I think this is a little bit dated. Actually, I think that outperformance is now bigger than it used to be. So to me, there is clear evidence already that companies that focus on data and AI, that attract the talent, that provide the tooling that can reduce the time of market can win in financial services and win against their peers and competitors, but most importantly, build the foundations to thrive, to succeed, and to be relevant in the new era of financial services that I think is going to happen and accelerate with the new things like open banking and DeFi and all these things that are coming up. That's going to make innovation so much more important and so much more critical to a sector that historically been starved of innovation in the past. I know this was a very brief overview of financial services, but thank you so much for listening to me today. We think there is a tremendous amount of opportunity, and we really want to partner with you to make sure that we can help you succeed putting data and AI at the forefront of your strategy going forward. Thank you so much.
I believe we managed to gather some very interesting data points and touch points from the wonderful keynote session featuring Junta Nakai. And I do hope all of you managed to also have some wonderful takeaways from this very pertinent session. With that, stay tuned, as it's also time to bring on board our next set of eminent panelists as they come together to discuss on another pertinent topic coming your way. Stay with us. We'll get the session started in just a couple of seconds.